What is up, nerds and sluts? You can decide for yourselves which category you fall into. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, among many, many others. And out of all the potential essays I could write and all the topics I could cover, it's a little funny to me that this is the one I've decided to tackle first. I've been hyperfixating on Danny Phantom since I was in middle school, and it was my first introduction to fan fiction and fandom as a whole. I'm not exaggerating when I say this show changed my life. Clearly, others feel the same way, because like Danny himself, the fandom refuses to die. I've seen the fandom go through a lot of changes over the years, and lately it's been pushing further and further away from the source material. Before I get too far into the video, I want to stress that there's nothing wrong with that. It's honestly a natural evolution, given Danny Phantom's been off the air since 2007. Fans have built new material around it in layers, like an oyster making a pearl out of a grain of sand, and this video isn't meant to criticize any of that beautiful work. I honestly love that whatever your favorite color, you can find it reflected in the fandom surface. So, what is this video about? Well, while there's nothing wrong with fan works that steer away from the source material, I've been seeing a lot of newcomers to the fandom who are misinformed about what is and isn't canon. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, and everyone is welcome to come play in the sandbox. This video is just to address a common misconception I've been seeing a lot lately. I've lost count of the number of people I've seen confidently asserting that Danny's parents are neglectful, abusive, or straight up evil. But are they? Really? Let's discuss. Full spoilers ahead for the series, so if you care about that kind of thing, now is the time to bail. Danny's parents, Maddie and Jack Fenton, definitely aren't winning any Parent of the Year awards, I'll admit. More often than not, they play the role of antagonist in the show, and their flaws are addressed openly and often. This is, to a certain extent, a genre convention. Danny Phantom is aimed at kids, and children's cartoons very frequently feature bumbling or downright evil parents. Even for children in good, loving, and supportive families, it's cathartic to see your parents rightly portrayed as the villains for the cruel act of sending you to bed when you really want to finish that drawing you were working on. I just need 5 more minutes, Mom! But brushing off the Fenton parents' flaws by saying it's just a cartoon isn't interesting to me. One of the things about Danny Phantom that fascinated me from the very beginning was how, no matter how stereotypical or one-note a character seemed to be on first glance, there were almost always more layers underneath. So, in this video, I'll be analyzing Maddie and Jack as complex characters, not typical sitcom parents. First, let's establish a baseline understanding of these two individually, and how they work as a couple. Maddie is smart, beautiful, and strong. In episode 2 of the entire fucking series, Genius Magazine has her in the running to be on their cover. And Jack? Well, Jack is,
Ghost! Ghost! Ghost!
He's there too. From the drop, it seems like we've got the same tired old bumbling husband and long-suffering wife trope that we all know and hate. But probe a little deeper, and both Fenton parents have hidden depths. Jack enjoys needlepoint and canonically makes custom action figures, indicating a capacity for patience and focus that often gets buried under his more bombastic tendencies. While the show usually focuses on his explosive, electric, and often gooey failures, it's important to remember that he is just as much a part of the Fenton Works team as Maddie is. True, Jazz seems to think that her mother is the one responsible for refining his ideas.
I'm glad you have a chance to work on your own inventions instead of always having to fix Dad's.
And it's certainly a valid interpretation to take that at face value. However, play that exchange a little longer and you'll get a bigger picture.
What does that do?
If I'm right, it'll be able to alter spectral frequencies to completely reverse their effects.
And if you're wrong?
It'll make a nice bowl for popcorn.
The scientific process is ultimately trial and error. Jack and Maddie Fenton are pioneers in a field that, while tangibly real in-universe, has long been dismissed as fantasy. Jack Fenton's failures are not an indication that he's stupid. They're proof of his determination to pursue his passion in a world that ridicules him for it. Sure, he's not always the best at picking up on social cues, and sure, his obsession with ghosts seems like the only thing on his mind sometimes, and sure, he can be blunt, and it's weird that he wants to wear the exact same outfit every day, and he has trouble connecting with others, and... Uh-oh. Listen. I know Jack Fenton wasn't intentionally written as an autistic man, but if it looks like a ghost duck and quacks like a ghost duck, I'm going to call it a ghost duck. There's probably some comorbid ADHD thrown in for flavor too. This man hyperfixates and hyperfocuses, tries to turn every conversation back to his special interest, and even if his life literally depends on it, he can't read a room.
We haven't spoken since that day. But the good news is, I think after all these years, he's finally forgiven me.
Jack. And Maddie. You've never looked lovelier, my dear. Please come in.
Bloody my man, it's good to... Hello?
Jack then proceeds to operate under the impression that he and Vlad are best friends for 3 full seasons, while Vlad blatantly flirts with his wife. In front of him. For 3 seasons. Again, you could dismiss this as Jack being unintelligent, and I'm sure that's what the writers intended when they put pen to paper, but I can't look at Jack Fenton and see anything other than an autistic man trying his best.
Am I boring you, Jack?
Frankly, yes. In college, he was my best friend. We were very popular guys. Roommates, lab partners. We did everything together.
Hashtag that relatable moment when you're being bullied, but you're autistic so you don't notice. We've all been there. Maddie often steps in when Jack is confidently fumbling a social interaction. Let's look at another scene from Bitter Reunions.
Hey, Harry!
Ugh, I'd know that voice anywhere.
Jack! Maddie! How nice.
Danny, meet Harriet Chin. She's a big shot reporter for the Milwaukee Journal now, but back in my college days, she was just Harry. Harry Chin! Ha! Get it?
I'm really sorry, Harriet. Sweetie, you married him. You should be.
Again, at first glance, this reads as the long-suffering wife having to manage her inept husband, and you'd be forgiven for asking yourself why Maddie puts up with this. Characters in the show frequently point out that they think she can do better, none more aggressively or pointedly than Vlad Masters. Luckily for me, the show doesn't leave us wondering what might have been if Maddie married him instead. They show us.
Vlad, you saved my life.
Yes, I did, didn't I?
Now, I have my own thoughts and opinions about how Masters of All Time could be improved, but that's another video entirely. For the sake of this analysis, let's accept everything contained here at face value. Vlad wins Maddie over with a heroic gesture, and the two of them get married. They live a life free of ghosts, free of social blunders, and free of worries.
Oh, your kindness knows no bounds, my love.
Listen,
Or do they?
this might sound like a strange question, but, do you guys have a ghost portal by any chance?
Oh, why would we have a silly thing like a ghost portal?
Yes, I'm a simple dairyman, successor to the Wisconsin Dairy King. We do not discuss ghosts in this house!
Then why do you have an ectofoamer?
What's the meaning of this?
That's my carpet foamer. It eliminates stains, not ghosts. Right, sweetie?
Maddie, can you forgive me for doubting you?
Spoilers, it's not a carpet foamer. In this universe, Maddie is forced to hide her interest in ghosts from her husband, to the point that she builds a secret lab under their home. Where Fenton works has a neon sign and an ops center that cannot possibly have been a legal addition to the building. Maddie's marriage to Vlad means literally burying her passions and pretending to be something she's not.
Even if Mom was crazy enough to marry Vlad, there's no way she'd give up ghost hunting to become a milkmaid.
When I brought up the idea for this essay with a friend of mine, he pointed out something I found truly insightful. Autism is underdiagnosed in women, and this certainly isn't a video about the way misogyny impacts diagnostic criteria, so for the sake of this discussion, let's leave things at autistic women are scolded into masking at very high rates. My friend pointed out that, while Maddie appears much better at reading social cues, that doesn't mean this is an innate trait. Why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, we all want someone we can be ourselves around. People who share our interests and encourage us to be the best version of ourselves. Jack is not a weight dragging Maddie down. He is a man she can connect to in a way that neither of them have ever been able to connect with anyone else. Even in the Masters of All timeline, Vlad had to lie to both of them in order to keep them apart. They never stopped loving each other.
I haven't seen Jack Fenton in years. He blamed me for the accident that gave him his powers. Vlad told me so. We ran away here to escape his ghostly wrath.
What? That's insane! He's still totally in love with you!
It's true, Maddie. It's always been true.
So, whether you agree with my armchair diagnosis of the two of them or not, it's clear that Jack and Maddie are the kind of couple that match each other's freak. Their relationship isn't perfect, but neither of them are perfect either. The important thing is, they make each other happy, and just a little bit weirder.
You got a problem with jumpsuits?
Jack, let me handle this. You got a problem with jumpsuits?
Also, in Masters of All Time, they imply Maddie had a child and put them up for adoption, which indicates she didn't trust Vlad to take care of a kid, and also that he somehow missed her 9 months of pregnancy. That's not really relevant, but holy shit, what a plot point to just casually breeze over. Oh man, this was supposed to be a brief overview before we got into the meat of things. This is already spiraling out of control. Okay. Now that we've briefly talked about who Jack and Maddie are as individuals and as a couple, let's talk about them as parents. I'm going to break this down into common ways I see their parenting categorized in evidence that supports or contradicts these claims. So get ready for a bunch of fun titles like Endangerment and Transphobia. Yay! Let's start with one of the big ones. I see the Fenton parents categorized as neglectful a lot. And I can see where people get that idea from. They spend a lot of time working on their inventions and chasing ghosts, and experimenting on the ghosts they catch, and using the results of those experiments to invent new things to catch ghosts with. It's an endless cycle, really. Maddie and Jack are often unaware of what's happening in their children's lives, to the point that they'll often exacerbate problems without realizing it and cause their children sometimes literal pain.
Okay, I get it. Stop touching me.
But more about the pain later. There are many, many examples of how Jack and Maddie's inattentiveness has caused harm to their children. I may be strongly in camp, Maddie and Jack both have AUDHD, but that's a potential explanation for their behavior in the show, not a justification of it. Whatever your interpretation of their reasons, it's an objective fact that their obsession with ghosts and general tendency towards distraction regularly puts distance between them and their kids. When their focus is elsewhere, they'll do something as passive as allow an infant Danny to be peed on by a dog, or as active as putting a metaphorical "please bully me" sign on their children's backs when enacting unpopular ghost protection measures.
Okay, who's the idiot security advisor who came up with those lame ideas?
Fear not, young ones. We're here to make sure this school is prepared for any ghost emergency.
You must be cautious. At any time, one of these ectoplasmic malefactors, hi, sweetie, could appear out of nowhere.
Time to sit in the back where nobody can notice us.
Time to sit in the back where nobody can notice us.
This can be a bit of a messy area. Almost everyone is embarrassed by their parents at some point or another growing up, and that doesn't make them bad parents or even bad people. Teenagers can get embarrassed over just about anything. But I understand the argument that Maddie and Jack go beyond what's expected in this department and actively sabotage their children's social lives. Sure, none of it is intentional, but that doesn't mean the problems it causes don't exist. Before the start of the show, the Fenton parents haven't proven ghosts are real. So Jazz and Danny spend 16 and 14 years respectively taking shit from a world that thinks their parents are insane.
Sweetie, I know what we do doesn't make sense sometimes, but you're only
16. Biologically, but psychologically, I'm an adult, and I will not allow your insane obsession with ghosts to pollute the mind of this impressionable little child.
Oh, Chaz, we are going to have so much to talk about in the parentification section of this video. Anyway, like I said when discussing why Jack and Maddie work as a couple, the two of them amplify each other's weird in a way that makes the two of them very happy, and society at large scoff and ridicule them. Personally, I think that's a problem with society, but there is an argument to be made that at a certain point, the Fenton parents need to take responsibility for the way their own reputation impacts the lives of their children. But that's just how their obliviousness impacts their children in terms of social blowback. What about how it affects them directly? On the surface, Jack and Maddie are easy to read as uncaring and, yes, neglectful. I've seen people point out that one of their children literally died right under their noses and they didn't notice. And while technically true, it's worth remembering that Danny has been actively hiding the fact that he's half ghost from them. Over the course of the series, Jack and Maddie do notice Danny pulling away from them, as well as his slipping grades and sudden propensity for rule breaking. In maternal instincts, it's made clear that Maddie and Danny used to be particularly close, and that Maddie misses what they used to have.
Danny's just shooting up so fast. Those special times seem to be slipping away. Oh, I miss them.
I'll say again that my reading of the Fenton parents as autistic is not a justification for their behavior, but it's worth noting that whatever you're reading of them, they both clearly operate best with direct and open communication. While the two of them might not always pick up on their children's more subtle bids for attention, they show up in force as soon as that request is put into actual words. Maybe even too much force.
Mom, Dad, can I talk to you about Danny?
What? Jazz, no!
Is there something wrong with Danny?
Is there a ghost involved?
Is there something you want to talk about?
That involves ghosts?
I mean, Jack may be trying to swing that conversation back towards his special interest, but don't be fooled. If push came to shove, he'd put his family over his love of ghosts, and you don't have to take my word for that. It's established in episode 1.
You've ambushed me, suffocated me with smoke, and worse, I was pulled away from Spike before he had his breakthrough!
What do you have to say for yourselves?
I, Jack Fenton, from this day forth do hereby turn my back on ghosts.
I mean, he goes back on that about a minute later when he sees his first real ghost, but the context here is that Jazz thought they were obsessed with something that didn't exist, and the fact that ghosts really do exist does legitimately change the situation, and... Okay, the point is, he considered it. You can decide for yourself if that's enough. Ooh, this one's another rough one. Do Jack and Maddie put their children in danger by being negligent when it comes to safety? Let's start with the ghost weenies.
Great. Leftovers.
Over the course of the series, we're treated to many interesting peeks at what ectocontamination can look like. The biggest example is Danny himself, though whether he's a human suffering severe ectocontamination, a ghost possessing his own corpse, or Schrodinger's boy, is up for debate.
What are you? A ghost trying to fit in with humans? Or some creepy little boy with creepy little powers?
What's not up for debate is how frequently the Fenton parents bring food to life. I mean, yeesh, look at this stuff. Now, unless I'm severely mistaken, no one's ever actually shown eating the possessed groceries, and there's no canon answer to whether or not ectoplasm is safe for humans to consume. I love the fandom take that ectoplasm is a contagion and it's slowly been leaching into the population of Amity Park, but it's just that. A fandom creation. You could claim that ectoplasm simply phases straight out of a human body and have just as much canon justification. Still, this is a new field, so Maddie and Jack should be taking careful precautions not to infect their family with a potentially hazardous material.
Mom, what are you making?
Hot dogs!
We invented a way to cook them 10 times faster than a microwave.
Great. You figured out how to put the Frank back in Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Still, this actually connects back to something from an earlier episode. In One of a Kind, Jazz says that Maddie is
actually working on a new form of self-generating energy.
From this, we can extrapolate that the reason the Fenton parents can afford to install a blimp on their roof is that they're studying practical applications for ecto-energy, not just powering their weapons with it. While Fright Before Christmas aired over a year after Attack of the Killer Garage Sale, its flashbacks prove that Jack and Maddie were experimenting with using ecto-energy to cook 10 years prior to the show's beginning. This is yet another thing you can interpret multiple ways. Either Maddie and Jack were intentionally experimenting on their children's food, or these were experiments and were never intended to be eaten. Both are equally justified by canon. We'd be here all day if I went over every invention the Fentons ever came up with, so I'll lump most of them, with one important exception, together here. The Fentons have produced a large swath of narrative devices, from Deus Ex Machina to Chekhov's bazooka. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're hurtful, and sometimes they're the Fenton anti-creep stick.
And I've got the Fenton anti-creep stick! Let's get him!
Sweetie, that's a regular bat.
Yep, but it's a bat with the word Fenton on it.
You're probably already tired of hearing me say this, but once again, how dangerous it is for Maddie and Jack to have their inventions near their kids is up to interpretation. Remember, the two of them are unaware that Danny is half ghost, and as far as they're aware, their weapons can't harm humans.
But what if Jazz isn't a ghost? What if we accidentally hurt her?
Maddie, the Fenton extractor doesn't hurt humans. Unless it gets in your hair. See?
You can decide for yourself if you believe they've done enough testing to be sure their inventions are harmless to humans. Canon says you're good either way. The worst their devices have done is cover people in goop, or frizz out their hair, or... Let's talk about the one invention I'm singling out from the pack. The one that has a canonical kill count of 1, if you do the math for 2 half-ghosts. The Fenton Portal. Maddie and Jack have been interested in ghosts at least since college, and that's where they made their first attempt at a portal to the ghost zone. Let's not mince words here. Jack fucks this one up royally. He doesn't double-check his calculations, pours cola into the filtrator instead of ecto-purifier, and activates the portal while his best friend's face is inches away from it. The consequences are horrific.
He was hospitalized with a horrible case of ectoacne. It devastated him and killed his social life.
Granted, Jack is in college here, and Vlad's not exactly being cautious himself. He doesn't think the portal will work, which could explain why he's so cavalier about getting up close with it without any kind of safety equipment. It takes two to tango and three unhinged college students to make an unstable proto-portal to another dimension, as they so often say. In my opinion, and you don't need to share it, the real question here is if Maddie and Jack improved on their lab safety after such a terrible accident. One half-ghost is youthful exuberance, two is a pattern of manslaughter. And they do make a second half-ghost, so they're definitely negligent at best. Right? Well, maybe. Maybe not.
Okay, I showed you the portal. Can we get out of here now? My parents could be back here any minute.
The accident. The foundational moment of the show. In Memory Blank, we learn that Danny snuck his friends down into the lab against his parents' wishes. Had he been forbidden from going near this invention specifically, or was he not supposed to be in the lab unattended at all? It's unclear. What is clear is that Maddie and Jack were a lot more careful this time around, to the point that they've made both of their children custom hazmat suits, or at least the show's version of them, and don't allow them near the portal unsupervised. Should the basement have been locked? Probably, but we don't know for sure that it wasn't. Maybe Danny stole the keys, maybe Sam can pick locks, maybe Tucker hacked their way in. Who knows? What we do know is that Danny knows he isn't supposed to be messing around with the portal, and he chooses to anyway. Maybe it was negligent of his parents to trust him to follow their rules. Maybe they can be blamed for what happened to him, but this is still provably stronger measures than they were taking back in college. Maddie and Jack are capable of learning from their mistakes and trying to be better. Only you can decide if that's enough. Woof, we've been digging into these pretty hard. Let's swing through a couple shorter ones before we get back into the nitty-gritty. It's fine if you want to categorize the Fentons as physically abusive because they, hunt ghosts and their son happens to be one. But in every scenario where Maddie and Jack find out about Danny's identity, they accept him pretty damn quickly. As far as Canon's concerned, this is an issue of communication, not physical abuse.
I'm sorry.
We're very proud of you, son.
Oh, my baby boy!
But I lied to you over and over for a really long time. If I were you guys, I'd be furious.
Well, of course you lied to us. We never gave you a reason not to.
All this time we've been yammering on about destroying and dissecting ghosts? I'd have been terrified too if I were you.
We love you, sweetie. You.
Whether you're ghost, boy, or something in between.
For the record, this isn't meant to discourage anyone who writes the Fenton Parents as less than cool when they find out Danny's secret. I eat that shit up. This is just a video about what's canon and that shit ain't. On that note. As we all know, Danny is a transgender man. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, trust me when I say that is a whole other video. And I'll be keeping this section short. Just go with me here. Danny is a trans man and a half-ghost. He is a half-ghost and a trans man. What do these two things have to do with each other? Well, nothing. And everything. Danny Phantom has a huge queer fan base, and it's not hard to see why. Hiding part of yourself from your parents out of fear that they'll hurt you? Being called a freak for something you can't control? Listening to people openly discuss your welfare in front of you because they don't realize you're one of them? I mean, geez, the parallels run deep. If you read Danny being half-ghost as a metaphor for him being queer, Maddie and Jack come out the other side worse off for it. Let's dissect the ghost sounds even worse as, let's dissect the Luckily, Danny being half-ghost is not canonically a metaphor for him being queer. He's an out and proud trans man, and his parents never once misgender him, deadname him, or treat him as anything other than their son. Really, it's a very progressive cartoon for its time. Alright, segment over. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video for anyone confused by this. Time for Jazz's turn. I've seen a lot of people claiming that Jazz basically raised Danny, that she put aside her needs to take care of him, and that she was parentified by Maddie and Jack. This is a natural extension of the idea that the Fenton parents are neglectful, and it's not without its textual support. Jazz has been shown to step in when her parents' attention wanders, and no one could argue that she isn't one of Danny's biggest supporters.
Still mad?
Wow, you are the smart one.
Danny, I know you're angry, but I'm worried about you. Ever since the accident...
Jazz, I know you think you're helping, and I'm sure when I'm older I'll appreciate it, but right now, I don't.
Okay, maybe Danny could argue that, but he'd be wrong. Jazz shows up time and again to defend Danny, support him, and cover his ass when he's terrible at hiding his secret identity. Let's look at that clip from Mystery Meat again.
Sweetie, I know what we do doesn't make sense sometimes, but you're only
16. Biologically, but psychologically, I'm an adult, and I will not allow your insane obsession with ghosts to pollute the mind of this impressionable little child.
Seems pretty clear-cut. Jazz is being forced into the role of the adult in order to care for her younger brother. But let's keep rolling the tape.
Come, you abused, unwanted wretch. I'll drive you to school.
Huh. That's weird. Jasmine never offers to drive Danny to school.
Oh, so this is new behavior. Look, this is an analysis of Maddie and Jack, not a character study of Jazz. For our purposes, we really only care about what makes her tick insofar as it informs her relationship with her parents. From episode 1, Jazz is insistent that she's an adult and should be treated as one. She even gets a whole episode dedicated to that very premise.
You know how sometimes you feel like you're the only responsible person in your family? Well, there are days my family makes me feel like I'm the only responsible adult in the world.
In The Fenton Menace, Jazz, who has by now learned that Fenton and Phantom are one and the same, becomes increasingly concerned about the pressure that Danny's been under. He seems to be suffering from stress-induced hallucinations, which is bad enough for a fully human kid, but half ghost? The property damage has been high.
It was worse than I thought.
Jazz brings the issue to her parents, and when she suggests they go on a ghost-free nature outing, they listen. Once again, direct communication for the win. This exchange is actually a great microcosm of a few important elements here, so let's look at it real quick.
Studies show that connecting with nature has a calming effect on troubled teens.
Are there any studies on the calming effect of big sisters minding their own business? Yeah! Quit it!
See? This toxic home environment is making him a nervous wreck. He needs a normal family outing, one that has nothing to do with ghosts.
Jazz has been interested in psychology since episode 1. Special interest. And she applies the things she's learned in her day-to-day life. Remember, prior to the start of the show, ghosts had not been proven to exist. So whether Jazz began researching psychology out of concern for her parents, or became concerned about her parents after taking an interest in psychology, ghost chicken or ghost egg, she spends the beginning of the show under the impression that her parents are delusional and in need of help. Even after her parents were proven to be right all along, Jazz still kept trying to fix her family, to make them normal.
But it is the perfect magazine to show that I have normal parents instead of a couple of ghost-hunting freaks.
They're not ghost-hunting freaks.
After learning that Danny is half ghost in My Brother's Keeper, Jazz comes around to the fact that no one in her family will ever be normal. Her focus shifts from forcing her parents to conform to society's standards to trying to help her family be happier versions of themselves, even if she doesn't always go about it in the best way, or the way her family would prefer.
Danny, I don't know why you're mad at me. I'm not the one who trashed the lab blasting imaginary ghosts.
It was one ghost and a parrot.
Was it a ghost and a parrot, or a projection of your own fears and a parrot?
Again, Danny explicitly does not want help here. He's frustrated with her intervening and wants Jazz to mind her own business. Jazz is not stepping into the role of parent because her own parents are forcing her to do so. She is privy to information her parents aren't because Danny has been hiding it from them. Information she only knows because she had the dumb luck to catch Danny mid-transformation. She can connect Danny's behavior as Phantom to his behavior as Fenton and get a full picture of his mental health and then react to it in the way she thinks is most helpful. An opportunity Maddie and Jack don't have. What about Jazz acting like an adult at age 16? Did her parents force her to grow up too fast by neglecting her and Danny?
And I packed your old Bearbert Einstein for you, Chaz.
Mom, stop treating me like a baby.
Not according to the show. You can have whatever headcanons you want, but canonically, Jazz acts like an adult because she thinks she is one.
Why do you think I call myself Youngblood? Only the young can see me. Only kids.
Wait a minute. On the sub? In school? At my house? I was the only kid there.
Well, that and your sister, who thinks she's a grown-up.
This really isn't uncommon behavior for a 16-year-old. "I'm practically an adult" is a catchphrase for teenagers everywhere. It's an age where you're getting your first taste of freedom and starting to chafe against the restraints of childhood. Jazz wants to be taken seriously and have her thoughts and opinions respected. She doesn't realize that she doesn't need to be an adult for that to happen. The conclusion of the Fenton Menace shows Jazz learning to accept that she's still a child and that there's nothing wrong with that.
So yeah, sometimes I do feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders, and I'm the only responsible adult in the family. But Danny's responsible, and he's a kid, which means it's probably safe for me to be a kid every now and then.
Again, I really have to stress that the added pressure Jazz feels in this episode to act as a responsible adult is a result of Danny deliberately keeping a major secret from their parents, not something Maddie and Jack are imposing on Jazz. Canon, this one ain't. What else is there to say, really? I've said my piece. I do want to once again stress that this isn't meant to discourage people from creating any fan works they want, with whatever version of Jack and Maddie they find most interesting. This is just my humble attempt to inform anyone interested of what the Canon Fenton Parents are actually like. I'm not here to tell you what to do, except maybe to recommend that anyone who's gotten this far and hasn't watched the show already should check it out sometime. There's a reason the Danny Phantom fandom refuses to die. It's a genuinely interesting and unique piece of art. It's not perfect, but to quote another show I love, "Those imperfections in our reality are the seams and cracks into which our outsized love can seep and pool." I love this show. I love this fandom. And if you made it to the end, I love you too. Thanks for watching. Queenie out.